If you and I were sitting here a year from today, what things would have to happen for you to feel very satisfied with your progress?
Are you going to the gym regularly enough to achieve the physiological adaptations that you want? And the data says that the big box gyms are just not a solution for that.
Welcome to the Strength Changes Everything podcast, where we introduce you to the information, latest research, and tools that will enable you to live a strong, healthy life. On this podcast, we will also answer your questions about strength, health, and well-being. I'm Amy Hudson. I own and operate 3 exercise coach studios. My co-hosts are Brian Sagan, co-founder and CEO of The Exercise Coach, and Dr. James Fisher, leading researcher in evidence-based strength training. And now for today's episode.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are talking about big box gyms. I don't know where you live, but there's so many options out there for people to sign up and participate in exercise. And there's sometimes the options can be overwhelming. And so today's episode is all about big box gyms or different choices when it comes to exercise. And the goal of this episode is really for you as a listener to be able to reflect on, is the option of exercise that you are participating in delivering the results that you are looking for from exercise? So we're going to talk about how to articulate really what you're after when it comes to your exercise. Why are you doing it? What's been standing in your way? We're going to describe the big box gym scene and describe, how traditional exercise recommendations or environments can fail some people or lead people to frustration. And also make a case for how a coach can lead somebody to greater success when it comes to exercise and achieving results. So there's a lot to this episode. We hope you'll stick with us the entire time as we delve into this topic. So let's dive in. Dr. Fisher's with me today. How are you doing, Dr. Fisher?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Amy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
And yes. So let's describe, first of all, there's so many exercise options out there. And we meet people every day at our exercise coach studios who have tried a lot of things over the years. And they still come in saying, I haven't achieved the results that I'm looking for from exercise yet. And there's reasons why that is. And so let's start by just talking about big box gyms. So, Dr. Fisher, what are your thoughts on this?
Firstly, I think this is a fascinating area, and this is really one of the key questions around exercise habits and ultimately sort of health span and lifespan. We know that about 10% of the population engage in regular strength training, and that's so low. It's frightening. But what's really concerning about that is of those people that attend kind of big box gyms, only 67%, only 1/3. So 2/3 of people don't actually even attend once per week. So even the people that are engaging or that say that they're engaging in regular exercise or regular strength training are actually not engaging in it regularly enough. And there's a few reasons around that. We talk about big box gyms, and there's some data. We've actually done some studies around this. We've never published the research, but we've done some studies around kind of people's interpretation of being in a gym environment and why they're not comfortable with it or why they feel like it's not efficient or effective for their goals. So what the first one really is motive. Oftentimes a client is lacking motivation. So they're kind of at a stage in their life or they're maybe their health where they understand that they should go to a gym, but they're not really sure what to do, and they're not really sure how to do it. So kind of the minimum commitment to their health that they're willing to make at that point is to pay for gym memberships. And the big problem with that is it doesn't doesn't cross over into anything. It's to some extent, it's a bit of a superficial commitment. The question is whether whether they will then attend, and the data says that they won't. And in fact, 50% of new members actually will stop their membership within the first 6 months because of non-attendance. So they make this kind of superficial financial commitment to join a gym, but then they don't go. And of course, they don't gain any health benefits by going or by not going because they haven't been. And so they stop going to the gym. So it's a very superficial approach. And, before we started the podcast, we were talking, I made the analogy, this is like going out and buying fruit and vegetables and putting them in your cupboard. That doesn't make you healthy. You have to eat them. You have to prepare them and cook them and have them with a meal with some degree of regularity and consistency to make like healthy behavior changes. Going out and making that low level commitment of buying the vegetables is not enough. And obviously, you were talking about this idea of supervision, and that's a big part of this as well. We know that when you attend a gym on your own, any kind of exercise facility on your own, without a coach, without supervision, then your level of adaptation is going to be less than it would be with a coach. Your degree of accountability is less, your technique won't be as good, your safety is challenged, and so forth. And ultimately, most people become frustrated by what they're doing, they don't make progress, and again, they leave the gym, they stop their gym membership. So joining a big box gym just doesn't seem to work for some people based on their own motivation. Take a step further and say, well, what's the gym actually doing for you? And this is not to berate, big box gyms, because obviously they provide a service, they provide equipment, and they provide space, and the things that they do. But actually, that's really all that they're providing for you. They're providing an opportunity for you to exercise. So if you're not engaged in that level already, or you're not understanding of what you need to do or that level of commitment, then you're simply not going to attend. And in fact, the gym, to some extent, is reliant upon a degree of non-attendance. They will sell far more gym memberships than they can actually accommodate. Every big box gym will have a maximum occupancy on their gym floor. And if every one of their members showed up at the same time, then they would have to turn people away. So that they're reliant upon non-attendance to some extent, or certainly varied attendance times. So the gym isn't really committed to your health improvements and the adaptations that you want to see either. And there's a couple of other things. So there's a big social element in big box gyms, both good and bad. In kind of qualitative interviews, a lot of people have reported that they feel judged. When they go to a gym, they look around and they see other people that are maybe stronger than they are, or that are leaner than they are, that are fitter than they are, or more muscular than they are. And they wonder if if those people are looking at them and kind of judging them. So people report feeling judged. And that's okay, because it's, to some extent, it's akin to the fact that if I went out to work on my car now and, you put 10 mechanics around me and said they're going to watch me work on my car, how would I feel? Well, I'd feel like that's pretty unfair because I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Whereas if you gave me a mechanic to talk me through what I was doing on the car, so I'm now doing it with that supervision and with that coaching, then that would make a big difference. First of all, I wouldn't feel as judged because I would have a mechanic helping me out. But second of all, I wouldn't expect them to be looking at me so much because they can see that I've sought that guidance and that expertise. And then the other social element that kicks in is that people, when they go to big box gyms, they'll often become friends with other people there, or they might attend with a friend or a colleague or so forth. And their workout ultimately becomes unproductive. It becomes inefficient from a time perspective. They maybe won't work as hard during the session and so forth. So there's this big social element going on. When I go to the doctor or the dentist, I don't take a buddy. I go for the health benefits of going to the doctor or the dentist. And if we think about gym membership and exercise in the same way, we go for the expertise that somebody can give us and the health benefits that we can get, not for the social element of being in that environment.
And we've talked too in the past about how long exercise takes and how long a time commitment is a barrier to a lot of people. We've mentioned that many times in the past. And so it makes me think with your third point about the social element, how easy is it to spend an hour or two in a big box gym? Now, if it's meeting social needs, that's one thing. But is it meeting my physical needs or my goals when it comes to my exercise? Maybe not, right? And so we might spend a lot more time, but not get as many results. And yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, and ultimately that leads us to sort of the questions that we have to ask. When people attend a big box gym, they're hopefully attending with an idea to make physiological adaptations, whether that's to get stronger, to overcome injury, or to ward off injury, maybe to lose weight, to function better, to live healthier, or lose back pain, or so forth. And so there is a long-term goal, but on this podcast, we've also talked about being process driven. And the process here is regular attendance. It doesn't happen by going to the gym once. You don't go to the gym once and suddenly go, oh, I'm stronger now. I don't need to go anymore. It needs to be done with some degree of regularity and some degree of frequency. So actually, when we talk about this goal, we can break it back down to the process of, are you going to the gym regularly? Are you going to the gym regularly enough to achieve the physiological adaptations that you want? And the data says that the big box gyms are just not a solution for that.
hmm So, what is it about, let's say, an exercise coach studio that is there in the model itself to help people succeed?
Yeah, well, it's the complete opposite to a big box gym. So, in the studies that we've done, when we talk to people about what they don't like about big box gyms, the phrases that have been used are things like sensory overload. There's mirrors, there's loud music, there's lycra, there's lots of skin. And if people go to CrossFit, and this is not berating CrossFit in any way, but typically the men don't wear tops and the women don't wear much more. Um, and so there's skin and sweat, and it's not an environment that typically is appealing to people that don't love exercise. Now, obviously, if you go to CrossFit or if you love exercise in that way, then that's great. But if you don't love those things, then you wouldn't feel comfortable in a big box gym. So what is the exercise coach? It's smaller, it's well lit, it's cooler, air conditioned. It's all about health and efficiency, and it's supervised. There's limited mirrors or no mirrors. It's not about lycra. It's not about judgment or anything like that. It's really about the efficiency of the process of the workout to achieve those longer term goals.
hmm One other huge piece of it, honestly, is appointments. Having an appointment makes somebody way more likely to do something. It's just like going to a chiropractor or the eye doctor or the dentist. This is something I have to do and I have it scheduled. That alone helps people to make it a part of their everyday life and to succeed. The social element of knowing somebody's waiting for you uh, is so much more motivating for a lot of people than just bringing myself to motivate myself to do this without anybody holding me accountable. That is hard to overstate that, but it really helps.
Yeah, some of our studies from some time back with one of my research students, we looked at the exercise motives around different exercise modalities, whether it was gym membership, attendance, things like CrossFit, or one-on-one supervised strength training, and the motives were quite disparate between the groups. The people that attend CrossFit or attend certainly the people that attend CrossFit had a high sport participation motivation. There was a high degree of competition and social affiliation, that they like being part of that team environment, and kudos to them. That's great. Lots of people will enjoy that. Um, it's interesting to make the analogy to sport participation because the injury rate is relatively high at CrossFit as well. Um, Other people that attend the gym, there might be sort of some degree of affiliation or some degree of social element as well to be able to say that they go to a gym. The people that engage in one-on-one supervised strength training actually reported higher motivation for things like ill health avoidance, and health-related benefits for their strength training and for their exercise habits. So I think that's really telling that these people are engaged in this kind of exercise for these reasons, um, rather than because they want to be part of a club or they want to be part of a group. So they've clearly found their way to these other exercise habits.
Yeah, one story I used to tell is that, growing up, I wasn't in a lot of sports, and I never considered myself very athletic or, yeah, I just wasn't an athlete. And it felt like, to me, for many years, that there was a club of people who were fit people, and that was a certain percentage of the population, and I wasn't in it. And so, if anybody out there has ever felt that you describe being judged, right? Or like there's some kind of club of people who really care about exercise and who know what they're doing and who are fit, and it's just unattainable or it's just out of reach, it's a myth. It's a myth. And we've talked in other podcasts that exercise doesn't have to be complicated. There's not a secret, you know, society that some people know all the things there are to know and they won't, only they know it and only they can achieve it. Strength and health is attainable to everybody, but most of us out there just need a coach. When we talk about having a coach, it's kind of like any other thing I want to be better at that I'm not good at yet, right? Like learning another language or learning tennis. I This is where I'm at in that skill and this is where I want to be and there's a big gap there. And I could try and spin my wheels and look up YouTube videos or check out a book from the library to learn how to do that on my own, but very quickly I would hit that frustration piece, that the lack of motivation because of how long that process, that learning curve is for me to get myself there. Plus, I'm relying on my own motivation all the time to really stick with it. And it's kind of a large learning curve, right? Or I could hire a coach to help me get from where I am to where I want to be. And what it's doing is it's just collapsing the timeline for me to get there. And what does that do? It makes me motivated. Once I actually achieve that and I see success in what I'm looking to have happen faster, then I'm motivated. And then I want to keep doing that. And we want to get people to that um, satisfaction, that place of seeing those changes and those results faster so they can stick with it and not lose motivation yet again, which is the story of many people.
I love the analogy of learning a language. It's so comparable to joining a gym. You go out and buy a book to try and learn a language, but ultimately, I think most people know that this is just wholly unsuccessful because first of all, they then don't commit the time to read the book, but they don't have the kind of guidance to work through the book at the right pace or the right repetition rate or with the right nuances. And exercise is, of course, the same way. People can't be expected to become an expert in certain things. They need to be able to defer to an expert, whether it's a lawyer or an accountant or a dentist or a mechanic. So the idea of being able to defer to an exercise coach to guide them through the workout and walk them through it in 20 minutes is ideal.
Well, it's actually smarter, right? It's smarter. If I know that this is unlikely to get me from where I am to where I want to go, that's it's the smarter choice to get a coach. And that's where I want to revisit. There's a question we ask people all the time, and I think it's important for people to stay in tune with what their actual desires are when it comes to exercising. Because it's easy for us to participate in things for many years, but never see the real changes that we're after. And so one question for you to consider as a listener to this that we always ask people is if you and I were sitting here a year from today, what things would have to happen for you to feel very satisfied with your progress? And so if you're listening to this and if you think of 4 or 5 things that would really mean a lot to you to have happen as a result of exercising, whether that's feeling stronger, getting a better golf swing, being able to lift the luggage over your head when you're traveling and next time that you're on a plane, um, having a better vertical in or a better golf swing, playing with your grandkids and getting off the floor, losing weight, having more energy and sleeping better, whatever those things that pop to mind for you are, just ask yourself, is what I'm doing leading me to those results or not? And if they're not, there might be a smarter answer for you. Have you heard, Dr. Fisher, about, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier in the episode about the statistics about how about people visiting big box gyms. I came across a study a few years ago where the headline was, apparently you can't even pay people to work out. Have you seen that study?
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of research around the topic, but certainly a few of the studies have done things as extreme as pay people to go to a gym. And if you're not motivated to go to a gym, even being paid to go will not make you attend. Attendance was incredibly low, even people who were financially motivated to go. So, and I mean, less extreme than that is, of course, if you take away the cost of gym membership. Well, take away the cost of gym membership. We've done a number of studies where we've invited people to be part of a study as long as they come in and work out. And even then, people that don't have a history of training don't want to come in and work out, even if they're given the opportunity to do that. So, it's really difficult to try to get people to overcome that. And a big part of it is the motives that we talked about, feeling judged and not understanding what they should be doing and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I think as a human, it's important to be honest about human nature and understand that it's, my motivation can be internal or it can be derived from an external thing like an appointment or somebody else who's guiding me along. We just know it's very obvious, why or what that motivation is hard to keep. And so, if you're listening to this, it's just important to stay honest about that. Um, Very fascinating. Do you have any other kind of conclusions or tips or pieces of advice then for people listening to this episode to consider?
No, I think the main thing for people to remember is that the perfect workout is the workout that people will do. So if you are a member of a big box gym but you're not going, then you've got to almost acknowledge that that's just not working for you. That's not the best way for you to engage in strength training. A lot of practitioners and physicians and doctors go away and say to people, "Oh, you should exercise more," and that's really not enough. And if they go one step further, they might say, "Oh, you should engage in strength training," and that's far better. But actually, for some people, that's still not prescriptive enough. And the idea of actually going away and finding a coach and engaging in supervised strength training is far more beneficial, far more appropriate. And of course, it's that process, as we talked about earlier, that leads to that outcome that's the goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just going is a win, right? Well, if something we said in this episode resonated with you, whether you reflected on the fact that, hey, I still have a lot of outstanding outcomes that I was hoping to achieve through my exercise efforts that I just haven't achieved over the course of the past several years. First of all, you're not alone in that. No shame. This is very normal. We've made the case in this episode that 80 to 85% of people are really not achieving or participating in meaningful regular exercise that is really delivering the outcomes that it has the potential to deliver to them because of all the obstacles that we know. And so if that's you, if you find yourself struggling to stay motivated in what you're doing, or you realize after reflection that, traditional exercise efforts haven't worked for you, you aren't attending the gym that you paid for, check out an exercise coach. We encourage you to do that. Visit exercisecoach.com and you can try a different approach with a trainer for 2 free sessions. So encourage you to think about doing that, or think about one thing you can do to shift your trajectory forward to really actually take a step in the direction that you're trying to head. We'll see you next time on the podcast. And I hope you remember, strength changes everything.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. You can submit a question or connect with the show at strengthchangeseverything.com. Join us next week for another episode, and be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss another episode. Here's to you and your best health.